Amandla. Amandla. Long live international solidarity, long live. Long live worker-to-worker contact international solidarity, long live. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades, allow me to greet you all on behalf of UNI Africa region, South African affiliates and the local organizing committee. It is an honor to welcome you all in the shores of South Africa and the mother city, the Cape Town, to this august and watershed gathering. We are humbled and really honored to have the world celebrating the 20 years of the South African freedom with us. In 1994, 20 years ago, South Africa was welcomed into the global community of democratic nations. I must point out, though, that we did not reach this point seamlessly. Without struggles, setbacks, sacrifices, sweat, exile, underground, and death. The solidarity afforded us by the people all across the world, churches, celebrities in arts and sports, as well as actors, made us resolute. And indeed, we did not arrive to this point without the international solidarity, provided by workers from all corners of the world, and we accordingly wish to acknowledge that this freedom could never be realized without your solidarity. Members of UNI affiliates present here today, your communities and the labor movement have thrown a lot behind the struggle for the liberation of South Africa. Many sacrifices, including lives and jobs, have been made in the process. Some workers risked their jobs by resolutely and unflinchingly refusing to handle goods and products from South Africa. One case in point would be workers from Ireland who were at some point dismissed for refusing to handle goods of South Africa. They belong to a union, which is today called Mandate. And today, 20 years ago, after our first democratic breakthrough and election, we can welcome the world community of UNI Global Union to join us in celebrating 20 years of democracy. Of course, our achievements are not only ours, they are yours too. We are celebrating freedom from over 300 years of colonization, decades of brutal racial oppression, control and exploitation of South African majority by the minority apartheid regime. Instituted by the descendant, of course, of the Dutch colonialists. The saying at that time used to go like this: they came as our teachers. In reality, they were exposed as our cheaters. They cheated us of our land. South Africa is the last to be freed from colonial bondage that engulfed the entire continent, with Ghana, of course, being the first to enjoy political independence and freedom. It is a reality, though, that there can be no real freedom without economic and social freedoms. Hence the clarion call for total economic and social emancipation. Throughout our struggles for national liberation, for total emancipation, since the first time of first contact with the European colonizers centuries ago, we always had two central considerations that drove us in this struggle: the political freedom and economic emancipation. These two strands of our struggle are most forcefully expressed in the Freedom Charter. South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white, and no government can justly claim authority unless based on the will of the people. So is Freedom Charter's declaratory preamble. And amongst its key features, some were demonstrated here, but not limited to. The following clauses are but some that I wanted to cite here. The people shall govern. Not that the people shall be governed. The people shall govern. The people shall share in the country's wealth. The land shall be shared amongst those who work it. There shall be work and security. There shall be houses, security and comfort. The doors of learning and culture shall be open. And in elaboration, that was advocating for free and compulsory education. Yet education is still so expensive. This program is Freedom Charter had become the ANC's program in 1956 and remains so today. Since 1955 Congress of the People that adopted Freedom Charter, the people of this country, black and white, side by side, mobilized and rallied workers, urban and rural communities, women, students, youth, religious communities, the sporting fraternity, and all sectors of life around the Freedom Charter. For Freedom Charter is the hope of the total and social emancipation. In the darkest days of the 1960s, where all organizations were banned, underground structures and cells of the National Liberation Movement, the ANC, continued talking, planning, organizing, circulating, and articulating the Freedom Charter. As the independent trade union movement emerged and flourished, youth movement and student movements emerged in the late 60s and 70s. And through struggles, it was not long before the Freedom Charter once again became the centerpiece of our programs and mobilization. And while throughout the 70s we did not openly circulate and distribute Freedom Charter, by early 1980s, the groundswell of resistance against apartheid was so great that we openly distributed and discussed the Freedom Charter. And when COSATU was formed in 1985, 29 years ago, at a time when liberation organizations were still banned, at a time when 35,000 people across the country were held in detentions, COSATU adopted the Freedom Charter as its rallying program. We raised the flag of banned organizations defiantly at our meetings, rallies, and funerals. And so were also our banners, slogan, and Freedom Charter paraded all over the world as more and more international community was coming and joining us in millions here at home. So by 1989, the writing was on the wall for the racist regime. And with great cost to life and limb, we entered the last decade of the previous century to construct a new political dispensation through negotiations that finally culminated into the democratic elections in history of our country, when Tata Comrade Nelson Mandela was inaugurated the first democratically elected president in the history of South Africa. And so the new democratic South Africa was born. Yes, to every birth there is blood. And in South Africa, the blood that gave birth to the new South Africa has flown for decades, for centuries, from brave men and women, young and old, urban and rural, worker and student. Unfortunately, and notwithstanding the great strides of by our democratic government to reverse the frontiers of bondage and poverty. Even in South Africa, the 2 decades of freedom have not benefited the working class and the poor. Instead, widened the gap between the rich and the poor. We are plunged and somehow entrenched into the triple crisis of inequality, poverty, and unemployment, and as well plagued by the diseases that find expression and parasitic character from such a triple crisis. Unfortunately, the contemporary class contradictions are expressing themselves in a posture that seems to undermine, if not weakening, the working class itself, in particular its advanced detachment, COSATU. Yet, as if history wanted to play once more a cruel trick on us, as we entered the global community, it was changing so rapidly. That much of what is in the Freedom Charter has not been realized. And much of what has not been realized here is not present in all parts of the world. So as we welcome you to our very young democracy, we also are acutely aware of the challenges faced by workers all over the world. As the global community of democratic nations welcome South Africa into their fold, we are also welcomed into global village of corporate greed. This is not because our government is insensitive and blind to the situation, but same is given rise to and perpetuated by failure to either aggressively and radically transform or completely replace the colonial economic infrastructure, coupled of course with vigorous industrialization and manufacturing, underpinned by the beneficiation of our mineral wealth produce. Of course, the neoliberal global policies have negatively affected the continent and the country, as is the case across the universe. The economic mismanagement and related ills of the crisis-infested capitalist system have been brutally visited upon innocent masses of the working class and the poor. Hence, the advocacy and the struggle for alternatives can no longer be postponed, as concepts like effecting human face to this global system have no prospects at all. Whilst the African continent, huge as China and India, is rich in mineral wealth, both beneath and above the soil, its people, especially the working class, are poverty-stricken, with some living in destitution and slums. The multilateral institutions such as AU and governments are at work to integrate political and economic infrastructural systems within Africa. Thus far, unfortunately, has excluded the views and participation of citizens, the labor movement, and the working class organization. An exclusion that seems to be by design anyway. Some of the outcomes of such engagements have resulted into poor masses competing and jostling for space and scarce resources, giving rise to conflicts that at times are labeled as xenophobia, fraught with shifting of blame to the very struggling communities. Most African countries are riddled with political destabilization, insecurity that in many instances are instigated and pursued by external forces with different objectives though, central to which is greed to control and looting of the wealth and resources of Africa. Central also to such conflicts are manipulated and power-mongering rebels and fundamentalists that are heavily aided and armed in exchange for such resources by the very external forces. Other evident elements of such forces are institutions of private security that supply mercenary services, most of which are in collaboration with the apartheid regime remnants and spent forces of the then security armed force that perpetuated and sponsored the so-called black-on-black violence just on the eve and during the political negotiations leading up to the South African democratic dispensation. To fool the unsuspecting public and again gain world sympathy at their expense, excuses like regime change and dictatorships are relatively but conveniently and selectively uttered, if not so loudly shouted. Intentions of neoliberalism, neocolonialism are not far from the truth. So let us draw some lessons from our struggles against apartheid here. As we were not able to overthrow the apartheid regime on our own, as we needed international solidarity, so ample demonstrated. So do we today need the solidarity of each other as we together confront the bosses system that places profits before health, profits before education, profits before food security and sovereignty, profits before work security, profits before decent housing, profits before childcare, profits before human dignity, and profits before people. Worst of all, such a system put profits before the lives of the very workers they employ, which is why bosses are able to lock workers in factories that are fire hazard and health hazard. This time, solidarity requires us not only many countries in solidarity with one, like in the case of Palestine, which is necessary to restore peace, justice, and dignity in that part of the world, or many other parts or points in the world. As there can be no complete freedom without the freedom of people of Palestine and the people of Western Sahara. Rather, the solidarity we require is one of all workers with all workers. Whether it is supporting Walmart workers in the North America in their struggle for trade union rights and minimum wages, garment workers from Bangladesh, low-wage workers across Africa, Asia, Latin America, Europe, or the scourge of unemployment amongst the youth across the globe. In a world where bankers are bailed out and families evicted from their homes, in a world where secretaries get taxed more than their billionaire employers, in a world where single mothers are not offered any assistance, in a world where many urban and rural populations face starvation, in a world where the most vulnerable children, the elderly, women are not taken care of, we need solidarity. We need a much stronger solidarity than ever before, a solidarity that will dwarf what we witnessed during our struggle against apartheid. Today, we live in a world where bosses earn hundreds and sometimes 1,000 times than which the average worker earns. We live in a world where workers will have to literally work hundreds of years to earn what some bosses earn in 1 year. We live in a world where families jostle with dogs as they scavenge on litter dumps to survive. We live in a world where some of workers do not have a decent roof over their heads, and where they do not have it. Where they do have it, it is not fit for human habitation. This world needs solidarity of the 99% with the 99% for the 99%. But as trade unionists, you also know that will not win at the table what we cannot win in the streets. And when we cannot win at the table, we naturally have to take it to the streets. Therefore, if anything, if the bringing together of trade unionists across the world if bringing the trade unionists together across the world meant they only had to make one pledge, then it must be solidarity, concrete, through petitions, through representations, above all, through vigorous campaigning and organizing, including taking to the street. And then, and only then, will we begin to give meaning to not only another world that is possible, but another world that is necessary. Welcome to Africa, the mother world. Welcome to our beautiful country. Welcome to Cape Town. Dit is mos duidelik. Welcome to the UNI Global Congress. Long live international solidarity. Amandla.
We are now going to listen to Ndeye Foune Nyang.
Monsieur le Président d'UNI Global Union, Monsieur Joe de Boul, Monsieur le Secrétaire Général de UNI Global Union, Monsieur Philippe Jennings, distingués invités, honorables délégués, tout protocole observé. C'est pour moi un honneur et un très grand plaisir de souhaiter une chaleureuse bienvenue à tous les participants de cette auguste assemblée au nom de toutes les femmes et jeunes filles d'Afrique.
It is an honor and a great pleasure to extend warm welcome to all the participants of this August Assembly on behalf of all women and girls in Africa.
Tout d'abord, je tiens à remercier, au nom de tous les affiliés d'UNI, le comité de liaison des syndicats sud-africains pour avoir accepté et permis la tenue de ce congrès en Afrique du Sud et de nous accueillir à bras ouverts et avec beaucoup de chaleur et d'hospitalité dans cette charmante ville de Cape Town.
First, on behalf of all UNI affiliates, I want to thank the Liaison Committee of South African Trade Unions to have accepted and allowed the holding of this conference in South Africa and welcome us with open arms, with warmth and hospitality in this charming Cape Town.
Le choix porté sur ce beau pays nous permet d'abord de participer avec le peuple sud-africain à la célébration du 20e anniversaire de la victoire de la liberté pour laquelle les travailleurs ont payé un lourd tribut, et ensuite pour magnifier avec vous la mémoire de ce grand combattant Nelson Mandela.
The choice of this beautiful country enables us first to share with the South African people the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the victory of the freedom, for which the workers have paid a heavy price, and then to magnify with you the memory of this great fighter, Nelson Mandela.
Je salue très chaleureusement toutes les autorités et les délégations syndicales venues de tous les horizons qui se sont jointes à nous à cet effet. Chers camarades congressistes, en 2010, à Nagasaki, nous avions approuvé la stratégie Aller de l'avant pour une croissance syndicale visant à améliorer et à renforcer les conditions de vie et de travail de l'ensemble des affiliés.
I warmly welcome all the trade union delegations present at this Congress. Dear comrades, participants, in 2010 in Nagasaki, we approved the Breaking Through Strategy for Union Growth to improve and enhance the lives of workers and all members.
Pour ce présent congrès, qui se tient ici en Afrique, l'un des continents où on a encore de la croissance, UNI Global Union, avec à sa tête des dirigeants éclairés, a très tôt compris que l'inclusion économique est essentielle, d'où la pertinence du thème de notre congrès, avec vous.
For this conference being held here in Africa, one of the continents where growth is still observed, UNI Global Union enlightened leaders realized early that economic inclusion is essential, hence the relevance of the theme of our conference, including you.
Cette croissance économique ne sera durable que si nos droits à un travail décent, un salaire équitable, une protection sociale et des négociations collectives sont assurées et protégées.
The economic growth will be sustainable only if our rights to decent work, fair wages, social protection, and collective bargaining are guaranteed and protected.
Chers camarades syndicalistes, vous êtes incontournables dans la construction d'une économie équitable pour un monde juste et responsable. Unis avec UNI, nous pouvons transformer le monde et changer les choses.
Dear comrades, trade unionists, you are essential in building a fair economy for a just and sustainable world. United with UNI, we can change the world.
Je demeure convaincu que l'intelligence, l'engagement, la détermination et la mobilisation mises au service du développement ne peuvent offrir que des perspectives et issues heureuses aux actions que nous menons et continuerons à mener. Je vous souhaite un excellent séjour, plein succès à nos travaux et vous remercie pour votre aimable attention.
I remain convinced that intelligence, commitment, determination, and mobilization in the service of development can only offer happy perspectives from the work we do and will continue to lead. I wish a great time, full success in our work, and thank you for your kind attention.